Hello, Wellspring. It is Wednesday, May the 21st, and we are continuing on with our scripture reading. We're in the book of Job. We've heard the Lord basically speaking to Job saying, you got to trust my wisdom. We talked about how God is kind of stacking this weight in a sense so that we experience his wisdom and not just hear God's wisdom, so that it moves from intellectual to heart knowledge. And in chapter 40, we're going to hear the Lord continue to speak. And then Job is going to kind of answer the Lord a little bit. And then the Lord is going to continue to speak to Job. We're going to hear a little bit about a creature called Behemoth that the Lord has created in this chapter. And then tomorrow we'll hear about Leviathan. With both of these creatures, there's good potential that these are reflections of what might be considered a dinosaur or some giant animal. Some people have said these animals the behemoth is a hippo and the Leviathan is like a big alligator. And then there's some scholars who say, this is a reflection on some of these prehistoric creatures, they call it a long neck. I forget what the actual name is for that dinosaur, or the Leviathan being like almost a Loch Ness monster-esque kind of creature. That potentially there's debate about whether or not these are actual creatures or if God's pulling from the ideas of mythology around the culture of Job and just saying to Job, just continuing to express to Job about these great creatures. I think more likely than not that these creatures existed to a level at which God is pulling from not mythology, but actually experiences or animals that Job would have seen. It kind of makes more sense logically. But that said, wherever you land on, if you think these were dinosaurs or if you think it's just a hippo and an alligator, it still conveys the point of what God is getting at, what God is helping us to feel and experience and to know about his ability, about his creation, about his understanding, and about his control. But let's dig into it and hear from Job chapter 40. I'm reading from the NIV. The Lord said to Job, "Will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who accuses God answer him." So Job answered the Lord, "I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more." Then the Lord spoke to Job out of the storm. "Brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall answer me. Would you discredit my justice? Would you condemn me to justify yourself? Do you have an arm like God's, and can your voice thunder like his? Then adorn yourself with glory and splendor, and clothe yourself in honor and majesty. Unleash the fury of your wrath. Look at all who are proud and bring them low. Look at all who are proud and humble them. Crush the wicked where they stand. Bury them all in the dust together. Shroud their faces in the grave. Then I myself will admit to you that your own right hand can save you. Look at the behemoth which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. With its strength it has in its loins, with the power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar. The sinews of its thighs are close knit. Its bones are like tubes of bronze, its limbs like rods of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, yet its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills bring in their produce, and all the wild animals play nearby. Under the lotus plant it lies, hidden among the reeds in the marsh. The lotuses conceal it in their shadow. The poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it. It is secure, though the Jordan should surge against its mouth. Can anyone capture it by the eyes, or trap it, or pierce its nose?" And so God gives this incredible description of this giant creature that he's created, tail like a cedar tree, right? Its bones like bronze and iron and enormous, can't be captured, and yet it's a rather gentle creature. You can approach it. It's an herbivore, right? It eats grass like the oxen, or like an ox. And so God God is just describing this creature and saying, look at this incredible land creature that I've created, that I've made, and you think that your wisdom or abilities will compare with mine. There's also this interesting section in the middle here where, before God goes back to talking about what he's done, he basically says to Job, okay, if humanity thinks it's so wise, then I'll let you be the judge. Can you do it? Can you judge rightly who is wicked and who is righteous? Can you bring down the proud? Can you humble the arrogant? Can you bring the wicked to their grave and pile them all up together? If you can, go for it. If you can bring yourself glory and honor, go for it. Like, if you can lift yourself up, if you're capable of doing it, then do it. And we know that the answer to this question is obviously no. We're not capable of doing those things in our own strength or in our own abilities. It's God who opens up the door. It's God who's given us life. It's God who's given us the ability to think. It's his image in us that gives us a sense of justice or a sense of mercy or a sense of understanding and wisdom. And so God is just continuing to demonstrate to Job, this is outside of your control. This is outside of who you are. And if you think you can judge me, or if you think your arm, right? He says your arm is like the Lord's, as mighty as the Lord's, then go for it. But the rhetorical answer here is clearly no. And Job gives us that answer. He says, I spoke once and I shouldn't have. And I spoke twice and I realized I shouldn't say anything else. I'm going to put my hand over my mouth, right? I'm going to stop speaking. Like, even though I might have these thoughts or these things that I want to surge out with, no, I need to stop myself from speaking, because clearly human understanding doesn't compare with the Lord's. And so we see that Job is beginning to experience the weight of this. And so as he wrestled with his friends about human understanding and about how they thought they could justify God's actions and behavior because Job must have sinned, or they understood God's justice and his mercy and the way God operates to the fullest extent, God is clearly saying and revealing, no, you have no idea. And Job is beginning to realize this. Even when I feel like Job, even when I feel like I might have an answer and I speak once or I speak twice, I've got to put my hand over my mouth and stop myself, because my feelings and my understanding and my wisdom does not compare. And God says, look at the behemoth that I've made, this giant creature. And yet, it's just continuing to stack that on. Look at this behemoth that I've made that shows you my ability, my understanding, my knowledge as compared to your own. And so we're continuing to experience this Eastern way of thinking. The weight of it is just building, and we see that Job is experiencing it. It's moving into his heart. I pray that it's moving into your heart as well, as you've been meditating on these scriptures, thinking about the Word of God, thinking about God's wisdom and his understanding. And that then we should take this experience of God's wisdom and understanding and then begin to apply it to the question that we've been asking through Job, which is, why do good things happen, or why do bad things happen to good people? Why does it look in the world like there's injustice that I see? Why do I think that the things that why do I assume there's places where I could do it better than God, right? Really, that's what we're asking when we're asking the question of suffering is, why does it feel like I could do this better than God does it? And that is a question of arrogance. It's a question of pride. It's a question of, God, you're not as smart as I am, right? It's beginning to say that, and it's a challenge to God. And so God is offering this challenge back to Job. Can you speak? Can you say anything? So I hope as we're applying this answer that God is giving about his wisdom and his understanding to the hard questions that we're asking, that we begin to realize we are not equal with God. We are not even close. It's not even a comparison, really. We're less than an ant to a human in one sense to God's understanding. And so we just have to continue to trust him and rely on him, and stop asking the question of suffering, because God is saying to us, you can't even comprehend the fullness of how this world works. You can't cause nature to continue to advance. You can't bring up the sun. You can't control the ocean. You can't create a behemoth. Why do you think you could possibly understand the depths of my justice, or the way that I'm bringing about my plan or my future, the intentions that I have? How do you even start to wrestle with that kind of a comparison when you can't do these small things like lift the light or cause the ocean to be contained or create a behemoth, right? So continue to press in. I know this is kind of heavy, but when we hear from the Lord, when we hear the Lord's wisdom, and when we trust it, when we move into experiencing it deep in our souls, you're going to find that it brings more comfort than you could possibly imagine. Meditate on this. Think about these scriptures. Think about God's sovereign, infinite, unfathomable power and wisdom and knowledge, and just continue to meditate on those things and see how God doesn't meet you in that space. God bless you, Wellspring, and we'll see you tomorrow.